It's Uncle Lawrence. This must be Gordon. I never knew him. And that's Uncle Aubrey, Auntie Jeanette, and Uncle Joe.
That's before you were born.
Yep. And then he went overseas.
He was also in the army?
This is me.
Oh, yeah.
And this is my mother and my father, my uncle, my brother Moishe, and my brother Melo. And my mother and I, when we went back to Europe in 1930, when was it? Yeah, our passport picture. And this is my mother's sister, her oldest sister, who you have one name after her, on the middle. Okay, this is all Dad's family. This is Dad's father when he was in the army. And that's his grandfather and grandmother. This is his mother, Aunt Jenny, his aunt, his other grandmother.
So you came the first time when you were 6?
6 in 1929.
And then you went back? Just you and your mother?
Just my mother and I, yeah, because my father had gone back before. He wouldn't stay here. He didn't have a job. My father wrote to my mother when he went back that she better come, otherwise he's going to send her a get. So we went back for a year, and I cried the whole time I was there. Had to go to the outhouse in the cold. And my father's visa had run out, but my uncle had a lot of people here that he could get help from. And my mother wrote him that she's working on his visa to come back, and if he doesn't come back, she's sending him again.
Where did you guys meet?
In high school.
Okay, you were at the same high school?
Yeah, at the end he went to another high school for 4 years, and then he came and took a commercial course where I was going to school. And I had been there for 3 years already, so he took 1 year of a commercial course. And that's where we met.
Okay. And then he went off to the service when you graduated?
No, he worked for a little while.
Okay.
He went into the service in 1940, I think, or 30, the end of 39, somewhere around there.
You were still in high school?
No, I was started to work.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you waited for him?
I waited for him, but he sent me an engagement ring from England. And I didn't have the guts to send him a Dear John letter because he was fighting for our country then. But anyway, that's what happened. We came home in 44. He went in 42, I think. Came home in 44. 2 weeks after he was home, we were married. And of course, you couldn't buy very much. The war was still on. And I had a borrowed wedding dress and a borrowed headpiece. But we had quite a big wedding with 3 rabbis.
Why 3 rabbis?
Because one rabbi didn't trust the other one. So to make sure, well, then he had the rabbi that he went to Cheder with. And my father had to have his rabbi. And then there was a rabbi that, I forget. Anyway, there were 3 rabbis to make it kosher.
Okay.
And so that was 67 years later.
Nice.
Here we are.
I don't know, I guess I was playing some poker, and I won about 30 pounds, which in that time was $150. So I was visiting my friends in London, Mr. and Mrs. Phillips, And Mr. Phillips took me down to the east end of London, where he took me to a market, and I bought this ring. And I had to send it to Bobby, but you couldn't do that much. But I knew somebody who was an officer in the RCAF at headquarters, and I took it to him, and he was allowed to send it over. So I sent the ring to her, and your Bobby told me afterwards that she was at work, of course, and told her mother if the parcel comes to let her know. So her mother phoned up and she said to your Bobby, Sadu, which means it's here. So she should come home and see what it was. So Bobby's story is that she didn't want to send me a Dear John letter, which means a rejection letter, because he was over there fighting for his country, blah, 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 blah. And so she accepted the ring. That's her story. Okay, let's on the soil.
But the real story is here. He's exquisite and very happy.
And this was the invitation to the wedding.
Right.
Well, I wanted to have it in English, and her father wanted to have it in Yiddish. You see.
Mm-hmm.
So we finally talked. So we decided to have both ways. I says, "Okay, Pa, whatever you want to do." Nobody ever called him Pa.
When the kids were little,
Yeah.
and during the year they went to cheder and to regular public school, right? And then in the summer they went to...
Well, when they were old enough, they went to Camp Shalom.
Mm-hmm. And what was special about Camp Shalom? Why did you decide to send them?
First Mark went. Well, it was a young Judea camp, and I guess, I don't know, here we're going to young Judea. It wasn't too expensive. So first Mark went, and then David, and then Stephen, and they took Lisa at a very early age because her three brothers were there. And don't forget, they graduated, went from Camp Shalom to Camp Bilolim, which was in Sudbury, and then to a camp in Ottawa. They graduated as they got older, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happened. And of course, during the between camp ended and the time they went back to school, our house was the meeting place for all the Shalomniks to come. And in our basement, in our rec room, which was over 21 feet long, all the Shalomniks would come and sleep there. And we had 10 or 15 people sleeping there in sleeping bags. All the boys and girls were sleeping there. And then the phone calls would start going, because they're phoning to their mother in Vancouver and in Halifax. And of course they would either call collect or they would phone here. And they were calling to the Northwest Territories where some of the former Shalomniks were. And you know, you weren't allowed to pass messages, but they would speak in Hebrew, so the operators didn't know, you know. They give the messages in Hebrew. But we had that for many years. All the Shalomniks, that's how we got to know many of them who lived in Vancouver and lived in Halifax and lived in Montreal and Calgary. We got to know many of them that way because they stayed in our place.
Right.
I says, how can you let all those girls and boys? He says, well, none of them get undressed.
And then Mark and David went to Israel.
And then, of course, when they both eventually made Aliyah, that we were there once or twice a year.
Mm-hmm. Were you surprised when they decided to make Aliyah?